Welcome to Presidential Fight Club, the show that answers the question, if all 44 presidents fought each other one-on-one, who would win? Hosted by two history professors who have too much time on their hands, Scott Rank and James Early. Well, welcome to the first fight of the Northeast Regional. This is a match between father and son, John Adams versus John Quincy Adams. James, are you ready to open up a bottle of Madeira and see what happens with this?
I am ready.
Okay, we're going to get right into it. Two principal members of the early years and also decades of the country. What we'll do is James is going to talk about John Adams and what he thinks he brings to the fight, why he might win, why he might not win, and I'll introduce John Quincy Adams. We'll see what happens with the fight, and then we'll do some aftermath. So, James, tell us about John Adams. What does he bring to the fight?
Okay, John Adams, he was not a super-duper athletic kind of guy, not a big fighter, wrestler, boxer, anything like that, but he did grow up on a farm doing farm chores for many, many years when he was a young man, and so he had to be strong. He kept himself in pretty good shape. He walked several miles every single day. And equally important, I think, from the physical side is that John Adams just had a fighting spirit. He has had a chip on his shoulder, and he had a nasty temper sometimes. And he is going to bring some attitude to this fight as well as a little bit of physical strength, too. He's only 5'7", so he's not a big guy, but I think he's got what it takes.
Okay, well, John Quincy Adams, he is almost the same size as his father. He's 5'7". He's about 175 pounds, and I think John Adams was also the same. So in terms of matchup, we're equal. Neither one of them, John Quincy Adams, did not have any military experience. Neither did his father. And there's a lot of presidents who weren't, but they at least maybe served in a voluntary regiment who would march in parades. So they'd at least know how to dress up in a uniform. John Quincy Adams doesn't have that, but although he was a son of privilege, his father was wealthy at this point, he was the man of the house at the age of 8 when his father left for the Revolutionary War to go handle diplomatic treaties. He would watch Bunker Hill from his front porch and guard his mother and siblings. He also, I would say, had mental fortitude. He went with his father on European diplomatic journeys and was the private secretary and interpreter for the American minister to Russia at age 14. And he didn't really know how to fight, but he was pretty healthy. He'd swim the Potomac every morning at 5 a.m., even when he was president. He also did that naked, so he knew cold exposure. So that's what John Quincy Adams has to give to the fight. So those are our two cases. James, who wins this fight?
Well, according to the voters in the American History Fanatics group, John Adams Sr., the father, just barely edges out his son. He shows the little young'un, the young whippersnapper, that daddy really is the boss.
Okay, so why do you think he was able to beat down his son? You know, every father's dream right here.
That's right. Well, it was really close, and there were good arguments on both sides. Some people talked about John Quincy Adams having daddy issues. So also having a chip on his shoulder and something to prove to old dad. But I think John Adams, just the fact that he grew up in a little tougher environment than his son did. He grew up doing farm chores and he did a lot of walking. And I think that just gave him just a slight edge.
Yeah, this is a hard one to say, but I think that John Quincy, he liked his father more than his mother. Maybe this developed during their years overseas together, and Abigail had sort of a stern relationship with John Quincy. Something I have to give to John Adams is how ugly he was. Jefferson's henchman in the 1800 election would say he was a hermaphrodite, which has neither the force and firmness of a man nor the gentleness and sensibility of a woman. So it's hard.
Ouch.
It's hard to go after someone that ugly when they're staring you down. That would scare me. So I think that's something he has going for him.
I would agree. It would have been a close and interesting match, and the father-son dynamic really makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, you can unpack all sorts of psychological things. I can't remember if we have George Bush versus George W. Bush later on, but we'll see if we have another father-son rematch.
Okay.
All right, well, that is the first round. The next one coming up in the next episode, Franklin Pierce is seated, so we're not going to see him. in the first round of things. We're going to look at Millard Fillmore versus Martin Van Buren. Thanks for listening to Presidential Fight Club. If you'd like to download your own printable bracket sheets for each regional tournament so you can guess how the tournament will go, check out presidentialfightclub.com. We'd appreciate it if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks for listening, and may you fight with the stamina of Teddy Roosevelt, the courage of George Washington, and the reach of Abraham Lincoln.